Hello guys, welcome. So hello guys, welcome to Ashutosh Coaching Center. Now today we are going to start the chapter name is Sexual Reproduction in Flowering Plants. Flowers. Flowers क्या होता है? Reproduction ensure the continuity of a species generation after generation as the older individual undergo the sensation or and die. The flowering plant shows the sexual mode of reproduction and bears complex reproductive unit as the male and the female reproductive unit along with the accessories structure. Flower is a modified stem which function of a reproductive organs, okay, and produces ova and or pollens. A typical angiosperm flower consists four wall of floral appendages and attach on the receptacles. First, calyx and corolla and androecium, male reproductive organs consisting of stamen and the gynoecium, the composed of ovary and the style and the stigma. These are the structure of flower. Okay, इसको आप याद कर लें. Now जानेंगे हम प्री फर्टिलाइजेशन एंड द स्ट्रक्चरल एंड द इवेंट. First, several hormonal and structural changes result in the development of the flowers, and second, inflorescence bears the flower buds, and then the flowers, and third, the flowers and the top are the reproductive part of plant, and fourth, in the flowers, androecium male and reproductive part and gynoecium female reproductive part. Androecium क्या होता है? Now wait for a second. Androecium क्या होता है? Androecium consists of, कहते नहीं है, fold of wall of stamen and that consists of the filament and long and the slender slick, and anther bilobed structural filament is attached to the thalamus body or to the petals. Okay. इसका फोटो भी ले ले, ज़्यादा बेटर होगा. इसका अच्छा से छोटा कर ले वरना बाद में कंफ्यूजन क्रिएटेड हो सकते हैं और भी बहुत सारी चीज़. ओके, सो वेट. उसके बाद क्या कह रहा है? एंथर इसमें आता है. ओके, एंथर क्या होता है? अ टाइपिकल एंथर इज बाइलोब्ड एंड ईच लोब्ड इज डाइथिकस एंड कंसिस्ट टू थिका एंड थिका आर द सेपरेटेड बाय द लॉन्गिट्यूडनल ग्रूव एंड रनिंग लेंथ वाइज. The microsporangia are located at the corner and the two each in each thica and they further develop to form pollen sac and which contain the pollen grains. उसके बाद स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ माइक्रोस्पोरेंजियम क्या होता है? The microsporangium is surrounded by four wall and the epidermis and the endothelium and middle layer and the tapetum. The outer three layers are protective and help in the descent of anther and to release the pollen grains. And the tapetum provides nourishment to the developing pollen grains, and in the young anther the sporogenous tissue from the center of the each microsporangium. Okay, इसको भी आप ध्यान में रखें तो ज़्यादा अच्छा होगा. उसके बाद इसके कुछ पार्ट्स है. एपिडर्मिस फर्स्ट लेयर, उसके बाद एंडोथियम, उसका मिडल लेयर, फिर उसके बाद उसके अंदर आते हैं टैपिटम, फिर आता है उसके अंदर जो है माइक्रोस्पोर मदर सेल बनता है. ठीक है, उसके बाद देखा जाए तो माइक्रोस्पोरेंजिनेसिस क्या होता है? ओके, जानते हैं. इट इज़ अ प्रोसेस ऑफ फॉर्मेशन ऑफ माइक्रोस्पोर फ्रॉम द PMC एंड एज द डेवलपमेंट occurs in the anther and the sporogenous tissue undergo the meiosis to form the microspore and tetrad, and in each of the sporangious and tissue has capacity to give rise to tetrad, and hence thus each cell is potential pollens and or the PMC. As the anther mature and the microspores get attached from each other and develop into the pollen grains. उसके बाद क्या है? pollen grains क्या होता है? देखिए, pollen grains represented the male gamete. इसका भी फोटो ले लो, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. ये सारे छोटे छोटे चीज पार्ट बहुत काम आएंगे आगे जाके. Okay. Now pollen grains represented the male gamete and are the spherical and have two layered as well as exine outer and the hard layer are sporolenin and कहते हैं sporopollenin, and which is extremely resistant and can be withstand and high temperature, acidic and the alkaline condition and enzymes, and the inner intine is inner and thin and the continuous layer made up of cellulose. मतलब कि ये ठीक है. उसके बाद मेच्योर पोलन ग्रेन्स कंटिन्यू टू बोलते हैं ना, कंटेंट टू सेल. जितने मेच्योर पोलन ग्रेन्स होते हैं उसमें दो टाइप के सेल पाया जाता है. पहले होते हैं वेजिटेटिव सेल, उसके बाद होते हैं जनरेटिव सेल. लार्ज विद वेजिटेटिव सेल क्या हो? देखो, the large and the irregular nucleus and contain the food reservoirs. and generative cell क्या होता है? small and the float in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. उसके बाद देखते हैं इसमें, तो कहता है इन 60% ऑफ एंजियोस्पर्म pollen grains are the shed at the two shell storage and the well while in others generative cell and undergoes mitosis to form two male gametes and three celled stages. The viability of pollen grains after these are shedded and depend upon the temperature and humidity and it ranges from 30 minutes to few months. Okay. उसका है गाइनोशियम और ये दोनों ही काफ़ी इंपॉर्टेंट. ओके, इसका ही फोटो ले लो, ज़्यादा अच्छा रहेगा. उसका गाइनोशियम क्या होता है? गाइनोशियम रिप्रेजेंट द फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव पार्ट ऑफ प्लांट फ्लावर सॉरी एंड इट मे बी monocarpellary and it means one pistil or the polycarpellary it means many pistil and in polycarpellary and the pistil may be fused in one and syncarpus जिसको और फ्री यानी कि एनोकार्पस. इच पिस्टिल कंसिस्ट, हर एक पिस्टिल में ये पाया जाता है. स्टिग्मा, स्टाइल, ओवेडी. स्टिग्मा क्या होता है? रिसीव्स द pollen grains and style elongated and the slender part below the stigma and ovary क्या होता है? bulb, basal and part of the containing and the placenta which is located inside the ovarian locule cavity. ओकेस cavity भी कहते हैं. The placenta contain the megasporangia or ovules. The mega और sporangia ovules क्या होता है? The ovule is attached to the placenta by the funicles and the junction of the ovules and the funicle is attached called hilum and each ovules has one or two protective layers called integument and which cover the rest of ovule and except of for a small opening called micropyle and the chalaza lying on the opposite side of the micropyle and they represent basal part of ovule and the nucleus is present within the integument and the contain reserve food. Embryo sac of or female gametophyte is located within the nucleus. उसका कुछ पार्ट है जैसे हाइलम हो गया, फ्यूनिकल्स हो गया, माइक्रोपाइल हो गया, माइक्रोपाइलर पोल हो गया, आउटर इंटीग्यूमेंट हो गया, इनर इंटीग्यूमेंट हो गया, न्यूक्लियस क्या हो गया, एम्ब्रियो सैक हो गया, ये चलेजा पोल हो गया और सो ऑन. ठीक है, इसको ध्यान रखना. मेगा स्पोरोजेनेसिस क्या होता है? मेगा स्पोरोजेनेसिस ये भी काफ़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है. ओके, इसका भी फोटो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट, आप इसका भी फोटो ले लें और ये ध्यान रखिए, इसको पूरा रट जाना है. मेगा स्पोरोजेनेसिस क्या होता है? मेगा स्पोरोजेनेसिस जो होता है वो मदर सेल को कहते हैं. यानी कि देखो, मेगा स्पोरोजेनेसिस ये mother cell get converted into the megaspore by the process of megasporogenesis. Okay, and the mmc is large and the contain dense cytoplasm and a prominent nucleus. It undergoes meiosis and to produce four megasporogenesis. Female gametophyte क्या होता है? In the most flowering plant only one megaspores is the functional while the other three degenerative. The single functional megaspore develop into the female gametophyte and this kind of development is called monosporic and development. The nucleus of the functional megaspore divides the mitotically and to form two nuclei which moves towards the opposite end and forming two nucleated and the embryo sac. Two or more mitotic division ensue and leading to the formation of four nucleate and eight nucleate embryo sac. Okay, after the 8 nucleated stage, the cell wall laid down and typical female gametophyte embryo sac and gets organized and 6 of the 8 nuclei get surrounded by the cell wall and the remaining 2 called polar nuclei are situated below eggs apparatus in the large central cell and 3 of the 6 cell are placed at the micropylar and end and the constitute the egg apparatus. 2 synergid plus 1 egg cell and the synergid have special thickening at the micropylar end, and these are the together is called filiform apparatus. It helps in the leading the pollen tubes into the synergids. The three cell are at the chelagel end and are called antipodal cell. A typical angiosperm female gametophyte is called seven-celled and eight nucleated at the maturity. इसको आप देख लीजिएगा, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, जैसे माइक्रोपाइलर एंड न्यूक्लियस सोन। उसके बाद हमारा है पॉलिनेशन क्या होता है। ओके, पॉलिनेशन it is the process of transfer of pollen grains and from the anther to the stigma. Okay, and depending on the source of pollens and the pollination can be divided as autogamy. क्या होता है autogamy? It is a transfer of pollen grains from the anther to stigma, and the same flower autogamy requires the anther and the stigma like close, and it also requires the synchrony and in the pollen release and stigma receptivity. The plant like Viola oxalis and the produces two kind of fall flower, क्या लिखा हुआ है, फ्लावर्सिक एंड कैजमो, कहता नहीं है कैजमोगैमस. ओके, flowers with the exposed anther and the stigma, the clistogamous flowers, and which of the not open or at all, and only one autogamy occurs. Gitogamy क्या होता है? It is a transfer of pollens from one anther to from one बोलते नहीं from the anther of one flowers to the stigma and of the and another flower is the in the same plant, and generally it is similar to autogamy but requires the pollination agent. Xenogamy क्या होता है? It is a transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma with different parts, okay, plants, and the pollination causes the genetically types of pollen to be bound to a plant. Okay, अब जानेंगे एजेंट ऑफ पॉलिनेशन क्या होता है. The plants use air, water, antibiotic agent and animals biotic agent for the pollination. Okay, अब pollination wind के द्वारा pollination कैसे होता है? देखो, pollination by the wind, it is the most common forms of the abiotic pollination, and the plant possesses well exposed stamen and a large feathery stigma. Pollen should be light and non-sticky to the carried and easily by the wind, and the wind pollinated flowers can often have a single ovule in the ovary and the numerical flowers packed in an inflorescence, and it is common in the grasses. Pollination by the grasses water क्या होता है? It is rare in the flowering and except for some aquatic plant like Vallisneria and Hydrilla. In most water pollinated plants, and the grown and the pollen grains are long and ribbon like and protected and are protected from the wetting by the mucilaginous recovering, and in a majority of flower plant like water hyacinth and the water lily, flowers emerge above the water level and are pollinated by insect. The pollination by the animals. Majority of flowering plants use butterflies, bees, wasps, etc. For pollination, most of the insect pollinated flowers are large and colorful and the fragment and contain the nectar to attach the animals pollinators. These are called floral rewards, and the floral rewards can be in the form of providing safe places by and to lay eggs, and the example, the tallest flower, Amorphalus. Okay, a symbiotic relationship exists between the plant and the yucca and its pollinators moth. The moth is dependent on the plant since the moth and deposit its in the locule and of the ovary of the plant, and in the return plant is pollinated by the moth, and the pollen grains are sticky and get stuck to the body of the pollinators. Okay, now outbreeding device क्या होता है? देखो, the repeated self pollinated leads to the inbreeding depression, and plant have developed method of to prevent the self pollination include first है pollen release and the stigma receptivity not coordinated. Second, different poisoning बोलते नहीं है positioning of the anther and the stigma, inhibiting pollen germination in pistil, and the production of unisexual flowers and ways to the prevent or both autogamy and gynogamy. Presence of male and female flowers on different parts such that each plant is either male or female is called diocele. Okay, DOC. And this mechanism is present in several pieces of papaya. Pollen pistil interaction क्या होता है? देखो, pollen does not always ensure the transfer of compatible pollens, and hence the pistil has the ability to recognize the right of pollen to promote post and the pollination event. If the pollen is of wrong type and pistil prevent pollen germination, this interaction is mediated by the chemical components of the pollens and the pistil. The pollen pistil interaction is a dynamic process and involving the pollen recognition and followed by the promotion or inhibition of the pollens. Okay, the pollen tubes reaches the ovary and enter the ovules through the micropyle and then through the filiforms or apparatus. It reaches synergid and in this way pollen tubes grow. Okay, उसके बाद हमारा आर्टिफिशियल हाइब्रिडेशन क्या होता है? इट इज़ अ मेथड टू इम्प्रूव द क्रॉप यील्ड एंड इट इन दिस मेथड इट इज essential to ensure that the right kind of pollen grains are used and the stigma is protected from the unwanted pollen grains. It is achieved by emasculation. Emasculation क्या होता है? The anther is removed from the birds and if females appear beards फीमेल पेरेंट्स बियर्स द बाइसेक्सुअल. बैगिंग क्या होता है? इसमें दो मेथड होते हैं, ठीक है. दो मेथड क्या है? इमेस्कुलेशन और द बैगिंग. बैगिंग क्या होता है? द इमेस्कुलेशन फ्लावर्स इज कवर्ड बाय अ बैग एंड एज अ नॉट अलाउड टू द contamination of the stigma by the unwanted pollen grains. When the stigma of the bagged flower becomes receptive and the collected pollen grains are dusted onto the stigma and then the flower is rebagged, and if the female parent is unisexual emasculation is not necessary. In this case the female bird is directly bagged and when the stigma turns receptive suitable pollen grains are dusted onto it so as the allows germination. डबल फर्टिलाइजेशन क्या होता है? व्हेन द pollen grains fall off the stigma and the pollen tubes enter one of the synergid and release two male gametes. One of the male gamete moves towards the egg cell and fuses with it to the complete synagamy to form the zygote. The other male gamete fuses with the two polar nuclei and forms triploid primary endosperm nucleus pair, and this is termed as the triple fusion. And since two kind of fusion takes place in an embryonic sac and as the sac and the phenomena is called double fertilization and is characterized of the flowering plant. Okay, इसका फोटो भी ले लो. ओके, बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. उसके बाद अब आता है पोस्ट फर्टिलाइजेशन इवेंट क्या होता है? द कंटेंट्स द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द इंडोस्पर्म एंड द embryo and the maturation of ovules and into the seeds ovary into the fruits. Okay, formation of endosperm क्या होता है? The endosperm develop before the embryo because the cell of the endosperm provide the nutrition to the developing embryo. The primary endosperm nucleus repeatedly and divides to the give rise free nucleus, and the stages of development is the free nuclear endosperm and cell wall formation occurs next, resulting in a cellular endosperm. The endosperm may be either fully consumed by the growing embryo as in pea and beans or retained in the mature seed as in coconut and the castor. Okay, उसका क्या है? डेवलपमेंट ऑफ एम्ब्रियो, ये देखना पड़ेगा, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट. ओके, इसका आप स्क्रीनशॉट ले लो. दोनों का ही जितने भी डायग्राम है ना उसका ले ही लो तो बेटर होगा. इसको डिलीट करो, ये अच्छा नहीं आया है. अच्छे से लो, फुल लेना है इसका, ये बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. परफेक्ट. इतना नो, इतना ही काफ़ी है, ना ही काफ़ी है. परफेक्ट. इसका आप फोटो आप भी ले लीजिए, बहुत काम आएगा. नाउ हम लोग देख लेंगे डेवलपमेंट ऑफ एम्ब्रियो क्या होता है. ओके, the embryo develop at the micropyle and the end of the embryo sac, and where the zygote is situated, and the zygote give rises first to the pro embryo and then through the globular heart shaped and mature the embryo. A typical dicote embryo consists of an embryo axis and two nucleate cotyledon, and the portion of the embryonal and axis above the level of cotyledon is called epicotyle. Okay, and it contain the plumule and the shoot tip. ठीक है, इसका जो प्लूम्यूल्स होता है उसको हम शूट टिप्स कहते हैं. द पोर्शन बिलो द एक्सिस इज कॉल्ड hypocotyl and contain the radical and the root tip. Okay, इसको भी ध्यान रखना. एंड द रूट टिप इज कवर्ड बाय द रूट कैप. कोई दिक्कत? उसके बाद क्या है हमारा मोनोकॉट एम्ब्रियो. क्या होता है इन अ मोनोकॉट एम्ब्रियो देयर इज ओनली वन कॉटिलेडन एंड इन ग्रास इट इज नोन एज द scutellum, and is situated at one side of the embryonal axis, and at its lower end the embryonal axis has the radical and root cap enclosed in the clonoryza. Okay, the epicotyle lies above the level of the scrotum and has the shoot apex and leaf primordia enclosed in the hollow structure called coleoptiles. Okay, अब हम देखेंगे सीड्स एंड फ्रूट्स के बारे में. द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ सीड, इट इज द फास्ट स्टेजेस ऑफ द सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन इन एंजियोस्पर्म, एंड द सीड्स आर द फर्टिलाइज्ड ओव्यूल्स एट द डेवलप इनसाइड द फ्रूट. ओके, सीड्स में जो होता है 3 पार्ट होते हैं. सीड कोड होता है, कॉर्डिनेटर होता है, एम्ब्रियो सैक, ऑक्सीज होता है. ठीक है, कोई दिक्कत यहाँ तक? उसके बाद सीड में भी albuminous and the endosperm present as in wet maize and or the non-albuminous endosperm and absence since it is consumed by the growing embryo and as in the pea and the beans. Some seeds such as black pepper and wheat and have remnants and of nucleus known as perisperm. Okay, the integument of ovules harden to form seed coat, and the micropyle facilitated to the entry of the oxygen and water into the seeds. As it loses moisture and seed may be entered dormancy, and of favorable condition exist the germinates. डेवलपमेंट ऑफ फ्रूट क्या होता है? द ओवरी ऑफ अ फ्लावर डेवलप इनटू अ फ्रूट्स, एंड द वॉल्स ऑफ द ओवरी ट्रांसफॉर्म इनटू द वॉल्स ऑफ द fruits and the pericarp. Fruits may be fleshy and as in the mango or orange, or can be dry as in the groundnut and mustard. In some plants, floral that other than the ovary take part in the fruit formation, and as in the apple and the strawberry. In this, the thalamus contribute to form the formation. Okay, for fruit formation. Such fruit are the called false fruit, and some are the true. Okay, the what is true false? The fruit that develop from the ovary, they are called true fruit. Okay, some fruit develop without the fertilization are known as the paranthrocarpic fruit. Okay, example banana. Apomixis and the polymbryonictic क्या होता है? Some plants produces seeds and without fertilization, and this process of the seed formation is known as the apomixis. Apomixis is a form of sexual reproduction and the mimicking sexual reproduction, and in some species apomixis occurs as the diploid cell is formed without the meiosis, and the develop into the embryo without the fertilization. In some varieties of citrus and the mango, and the nucleus cell divided and the new protruder and into the embryo sac to develop into the embryos, and in such cases each ovules may contain and several embryo, and in this condition is called polymbriony. Okay, क्या कहते हैं? Polymbriony. Apomixis is the important for the producing the hybrid variety of fruit and the vegetable, and also for the increasing crop yield and multifold. Okay, so guys, this chapter has been completely finished. Thanks for the watching video till the end, and you are a part of journey of us. So please like, share and subscribe as you can. जितना ज़्यादा हो सके लाइक शेयर सब्सक्राइब कर दे. और बाय बाय एंड सी यू इन नेक्स्ट वीडियो.